Welcome back to Bad Things in History, where if you can't say something nice, at least it's content. Our attempt to decode the violence and suffering of the 1980s continues. This time we look at the year 1985. The world was on fire, quite literally. Plane crashes, explosions, and natural disasters were all working hard to claim their quota of innocent victims. Our first story is about terrorists in Spain. El Descanso Bombing. On the night of April 25, 1985, patrons were visiting the El Descanso restaurant in Madrid, Spain. People in Spain tend to eat relatively late, so at 10:30 p.m. the restaurant was filled to capacity. Without warning, a bomb exploded. The three-story building which contained the restaurant was damaged in the explosion and collapsed. At the time the bomb was detonated, there were over 200 people inside. The device killed 18 of them and injured another 82. 15 United States servicemen from a nearby base were also injured in the blast. Investigators determined a 13-pound chemical bomb was placed near the bathroom. It was a type of bomb that terrorist groups didn't usually use. Despite this, 3 terrorist organizations rushed to claim responsibility for the attack. A Basque separatist group that wanted independence from Spain said it planted the bomb. Another Spanish Marxist group also said that they were the ones that placed the device in the restaurant, and an Islamic jihadist group said that in reality the bombing was their plan. Eventually, authorities started to suspect the Islamic jihadist terrorists were responsible for the attack. They had detonated other devices in Spain, plus when taking responsibility, the terrorist group claimed they made a mistake. The bomb was intended to kill as many Americans as possible, but went off too early. The case was finally closed in 1987 after Spanish police failed to arrest anyone. New Coke. Although nobody died, an entire generation was traumatized by this event. Coca Cola once controlled 60% of the soft drink market, but by 1983 they only had 24% of it. Most of the reason why was Pepsi. The Pepsi company had more soft drink options than Coca Cola, and its commercials were more appealing to young people. Roberto Goizueta was the chief executive officer for Coca Cola. He started a secret project to find a new flavor. A sweeter version of Coca Cola was created and used in taste tests nationwide. People overwhelmingly preferred the new flavor. Some were also very upset when told this new flavor would replace the existing Coca Cola formula. Most notably, residents in southern states were unhappy with the news, but since most people liked the new flavor, it was decided to release it to the public and retire the previous formula. On April 23, 1985, New Coke was officially launched worldwide. Public marketing campaigns in New York City and Washington, D.C. helped make the new formula a success. Over the next few weeks, it appeared that Coca-Cola sales were on the rise. However, it turned out that ignoring the discontent of Southern Coca-Cola drinkers came with consequences. The company received over 40,000 calls and letters expressing opposition to the change. Despite the anger directed at New Coke, Roberto decided to stay the course. Sales were up in the rest of the United States, and he was confident customers would accept the new reality. Unfortunately for Coca-Cola, international opinion about New Coke matched that in the southern United States. Some countries, such as Mexico, refused to sell it at all. As discontent spread, so did protests and boycotts of the Coca-Cola company. On July 11th, just 79 days after the launch of New Coke, it was announced that the original formula would return. It appeared that trying to change Coca-Cola's formula was a disaster, but with the return of the original formula, sales suddenly skyrocketed. A marketing disaster somehow turned into increased profits for the company. When New Coke launched, Bill Cosby starred in commercials promoting the new drink. He quit appearing in advertisements for Coca-Cola after the failure of New Coke. Bill Cosby claimed that the product launch ruined his credibility. Bradford City Stadium fire. People in England love soccer, and sometimes it kills them. The University of Bradford Stadium was built in 1886 and initially hosted rugby matches. As soccer increased in popularity, the stadium was upgraded. Most of the new construction was completed by 1911. By 1984, civil engineers knew that the stadium was not safe. They tried to warn people about it, but nobody was listening. The problem was that spectators threw trash between the seats, which fell to the ground. Most of the discarded material was also very flammable, and workers only bothered removing the litter once every month or so. In May 1985, construction materials were purchased to upgrade the stadium and fix the fire hazard, but the effort would not be completed in time to avert disaster. On May 11th, a soccer game was in progress at the stadium. By 3:04 p.m., it was halftime, and most of the spectators were very bored with the uneventful match, but the crowd became much more excited when they noticed fire beneath their feet. A television commentator named John Helm later described what happened. "A man over from Australia visiting his son got 2 tickets to the game. He lit a cigarette, and when it was coming to an end, he put it down onto the floorboard and tried to put his foot onto it to put it out. It slipped through a hole in the floorboard. A minute later, he saw a small plume of smoke, so he poured his coffee on it, and so did his son. It seemed to put it out, but a minute or so later, there was suddenly a bigger whoosh of smoke, so they went to get a steward. By the time they got back, the whole thing had taken off. At first, an attempt was made to find fire extinguishers. None were available near the stands. They had been removed out of fear of vandalism. Unable to stop the flames, the police started trying to evacuate the crowd. As several exits were locked, the situation soon started escalating out of control. People lifted children over walls to help them escape. Some ran onto the field, and in other cases, trapped visitors broke open locked doors to escape. Firefighters arrived 4 minutes after being called, but it was too late. Flames had already engulfed the section where spectators had been. 56 people died in the fire, and more than 200 had to be treated for severe burns. Over the next several years, investigations determined that the city council and soccer teams shared responsibility. However, nobody was ever prosecuted for the disaster. Japan Airlines Flight 123. The 1980s was a decade full of new world records. That included the deadliest single aircraft accident in aviation history. Flight 123 was a Boeing 747 first delivered to the airline in 1974. It only took a few years of service before the airplane's first accident occurred. During a landing on June 2, 1978, the aircraft's tail struck the runway. Nobody was killed, but it injured several people and damaged the aircraft. Technicians repaired the 747, and it was soon able to carry passengers again. The airplane seemed to be safe again, but it wouldn't last. On the evening of August 12, 1985, Flight 123 departed from the Tokyo airport. A little over 3 miles away from the airport, the airplane suddenly experienced rapid decompression. The captain realized what was happening and sent a distress call to Tokyo. He then told the co-pilot to turn around and prepare for a landing, but there was a problem. The airplane wouldn't respond. The pilots were unaware that the loss of pressure caused the ceiling to collapse at the rear of the plane. This severed the hydraulic lines, so the pilots couldn't control their altitude. Flight 123 tried to turn back toward Tokyo, but air traffic control was having problems talking to them. The lack of oxygen was affecting the ability of the pilots to communicate, and they couldn't turn the aircraft enough to get back to the airport. Unfortunately, the missing hydraulics meant the plane was nearly uncontrollable. At first, it began rising and falling, but then it started rolling. As the aircraft descended, the pilots overcame the control issues and stabilized the plane using only the engines, but it wasn't enough to save them. Flight 123 was in the middle of a right turn when it struck trees on top of a mountain. The airplane crashed and exploded. Only 4 people survived. 520 died in the accident. An investigation found that after the 1978 incident, repairs were not made correctly. This allowed the bulkhead to fail in a way that would never have happened otherwise. Debris from the accident has been located as recently as June 24, 2022. During road repairs, an oxygen mask belonging to Flight 123 was found. Armero Tragedy. Colombia is a beautiful country. It is also full of volcanoes that periodically kill people. Armero is a town located about 105 miles away from the capital city of Bogota. Armero was built on top of volcanic mud, deposited by the Nevado del Ruiz volcano. Thanks to the rich soil, Armero was a prosperous farming community. It produced nearly 1/4 of Colombia's rice. Other important crops, such as cotton and coffee, were also grown there. Those who knew the history of the area also knew that death was never far away. In 1595, the volcano exploded and killed most of the villagers that occupied valleys. In 1845, it happened again, killing 645 people. In addition to natural disasters, Colombia also had political unrest. On November 6, 1985, a guerrilla group captured the Supreme Court. They took 300 judges and lawyers hostage, then demanded that President Belisario Betancourt stand trial. Instead of complying with demands, the Colombian military attempted to rescue the hostages. During the gunfight that erupted, the building caught fire. The guerrilla rebels were stopped, but over 100 people were killed. The government's fight with political insurgents may have been part of the reason why it ignored geologists. In late 1984, scientists noticed that activity around Nevado del Ruiz had increased. By September 1985, it was obvious that an eruption was imminent. The volcano was rumbling and earthquakes were happening all around Armero. The mayor of Armero tried to warn locals about what was coming. He planned for an evacuation and asked the Colombian government for help, but they never got around to doing anything before the volcano exploded. A little after 9 p.m. on November 13th, the volcano erupted. It shot rocks 20 miles into the sky, then hot gases emerged and started melting ice. A collection of rocks, gas, and water poured down the side of the volcano and into Armero. The massive flows poured through the town in 3 separate waves. By midnight, over 85% of the community was buried. For those trapped in the mud, it wasn't a pleasant ending. The pressure of the moving soil and rock forced the material into every available body part. Most of the victims were asphyxiated. The relief and rescue efforts were also challenging to arrange. Just 2 months earlier, Mexico City had experienced a devastating earthquake. Many international organizations that would typically help after a natural disaster were still busy in Mexico and couldn't go to Colombia. For those who did try to help, it became clear that the task would be difficult. The entire town was covered in soft mud. Nobody could walk on it without sinking, and to make matters worse, the only hospital in the area was underneath the volcanic deposits. One of the victims was documented by journalists. Her tragic story soon spread around the world. Omaira Sanchez was 13 years old. When the landslide poured over her home, she was covered in debris and trapped. Omaira was able to dig a small hole and get her hand through it. Rescuers saw this and began trying to rescue her. They kept trying to pull her out of the debris, but couldn't. Finally, they realized the horrifying truth. Omaira's legs were trapped beneath a door that fell on her legs. Rescuers couldn't remove the debris trapping Omaira without also drowning her. Doctors said they could amputate her legs, but couldn't treat her properly after that. Ultimately, they decided the most humane thing would be to keep the girl comfortable until she died. She passed away on November 16th, most likely from exposure, but the picture taken of her became a symbol of the Colombian government's incompetence. Rescue efforts continued for a week. The number of casualties was massive. 4,000 people were injured and over 20,000 were homeless. The official death toll counted 22,540 victims. Thanks to the press coverage of Omaira and the massive number of casualties that could have been prevented, citizens were outraged. After a massive funeral was held for the victims, a slogan emerged, which said, "The volcano didn't kill 22,000 people, the government killed them." The Colombian government responded by creating early warning programs for high-risk areas. They have evacuated towns near volcanoes as recently as 2009. If the Nevado del Ruiz disaster were to happen again today, at least 100,000 people would be in the path of destruction. If you had a time machine, would you go back to the 1980s? And after seeing this episode, if you answered yes, we would like to know why. Tell us all about it in the comments below. And if you want to make sure we keep creating content like this, then like the video, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss the next entry in this series, and make sure to click the little bell so you get notifications. Thank you for watching Bad Things in History.